Hello, my name is Evans Mensah, and you can relive all the fun and excitement on Top Story, Newsnight, and of course, Ghana Connect via podcast. All you need to do is to log on to my Joy Online/podcast. Search for your favorite show and relive the moment. Joy 99.7 FM, your radio for discerning listeners.
Joy 99.7.
This is live. Live. Chairman Dikale. 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 Ankarang. Chairman Dikale. Yang national. This is live. Chairman Dikale.
I'm a development expert, and what my course teaches me is that I should be consultative enough. I should involve people. I should not decide solutions for people. The people themselves must bring up the solutions. So for instance, if we are going to relocate a lorry station from here to the Toyile or the Kuko market, I don't have to suggest to the people that this is the period that I have to relocate them. Myself, together with the assemblymen, will have to take such a decision, consulting the chiefs, the major political actors. And I think that I am not going to discount the influence and the impact of consulting the major political actors in the metro anytime such decisions are going to be taken. Because we need to carry people along. If you ignore, if you discriminate, if you are selective in the way you consult people, it means you cannot get the support of everybody. And I would want to have the support of everybody. And I'm very confident that will be reflected in the confirmation that the Assembly
Rural Development Minister Dan Bochi. Amidst armed security forces, the supporters chanted war songs, marching on from the town center to burn at least 6 installations of the party in various locations in the township. From there, they violently proceeded to besiege the private residence of the constituency chairman in order to burn more of the party properties, but were overpowered by the police.
This is live. Live. Chairman Dikale. Chairman Dikale. Chairman Dikale. Chairman Dikale. Chairman Dikale.
Abdul Rahman Sharif, the party's regional deputy Nasara coordinator, who had been on an official assignment monitoring the situation since yesterday when tensions began to mount, said he was disappointed by the failure of the police to stop the incident despite the glaring signals.
How many party pavilions have been touched?
Okay, I can count 3. 3, yes. I can count 3 for now. The central base, patriotic base, and then where our constituency chairman do sit, he has a pavilion. Yes.
The party office, do you have party office in Chirponi?
We don't have a party office in Chirponi. It's just some pavilions that for the youth groups where people do sit. But we don't have a party office.
Have there been any arrests?
No, so far we have not heard of any arrest.
Have there been any injuries?
No, I was told that the MP's brother was hurt, but I don't know how it is currently. I don't know, but the MP's brother, they attacked him, the mob.
You know his name?
I learned he has been taken to the Hospital.
You know his name, sir?
He's Fatao. Abdul Fatao.
So how did the police allow this to happen? Because yesterday there were signals and...
In fact, even this morning, there were police patrol and everything. We ourselves are wondering why that thing happened. In fact, we ourselves, and going further, I don't know if you interview some of them, let them understand that if anyone is due, at least they should make some arrest and let them understand. Why, if you don't make an arrest, they can do anything at any time and go scot-free.
All right, so as you've seen and heard in the videos that we've shared with you this morning on the AM show, there's been agitation in parts of the country over the release of the President's list of nominees for Metropolitan, Municipal and District Chief Executives. This no new, except it's coming after the long delay in the appointments, and this is likely to further delay the confirmation of these MMDCEs. So there's also the issue of the gender balance of the 260 nominees. Just about 40 of them are females, and then the rest, more than 220 are males. This is the case that the women are not available. Let's get on with our conversation, and joining us now is Richard Ni Ama, Executive Director of the Progressive People's Party. They have an angle, or they have a take on all of this. And then Frederick Ejaku Udru, who's a Dean Studies and Research at the Institute of Local Government Studies. And then Andrews Bediaku is the MCE nominee for German South. He's a former administrator of the National Association of Local Authorities of Ghana. Thank you very much to you all for joining. Let's start with Frederick, Frederick Ejaku Udru, Dean Studies and Research, Institute of Local Government Studies. So, what do you make of all the agitations that we're seeing, especially coming after the long delay in the release of the list? We're thinking, or you'd think, that it will come with a lot more consensus than we're seeing right now.
Well, let me state that it is very disappointing, the reaction, particularly the violent reactions we are receiving from across some districts. This shows the lack of understanding of our democratic process. First and foremost, people are failing to understand what it means to live under rule of law. That in a system such as ours, if you have a disagreement, the way to go is not violence. Secondly, it shows gross misunderstanding of the law, because if you go into the law, the prerogative to appoint rests solely with the president. And if you disagree with the president about his choice, you don't go out and violently express it. You have to use other means to do that. And then if you also consider the fact that it's taken us a very long time, and notwithstanding whatever we may say about the length of time it's taking us, there was some level of novelty in that people were allowed to put in their application, and there was a long selection process. So if your candidate or the person you supported could not get through, the way to go is not through this violence. This cannot change anything. So this is pure case of lawlessness, and that sense of entitlement some people always have about the fact that it is either their choice or nobody's, notwithstanding what the legal processes allow. So this is very condemnable.
Mr. Jakodro, you say that this cannot change anything. I'm not sure, though, because a lot of the time the political leaders would tend to bow to pressure if the agitations are strong enough.
You see, any change that could occur would happen only if there are clear issues. Facts are deduced to show that a person appointed is not qualified or is not fit for the role. The fact that you go out on rampage will rather present you as somebody who doesn't understand the process. and that it is either your choice or nobody's. So I would be very shocked that anybody can think that what they are doing can really change anything. The way to go, if I were any of these people, the way to go would have been to lobby the assembly members not to vote for the person so that there could be a chance for renomination. But if you go out this way and assembly members, a majority of them, at least 2/3 of them, believe the person nominated is fit and they vote for that person, there is nothing you can do about it. You will go out today to violently show this, but after a day or two, you won't be on the street again. So I find this quite unnecessary.
All right, let me bring in MCA nominee for German South. He's a former, okay, so we don't have Andrews Bediako yet, but let me then bring in Richard Niyama, Executive Director of the Progressive People's Party. Now, your party has taken the position that you would have wished, or you're still pushing for the election of MMDCs. I'm sure all that's happening would bolster your position that indeed this shouldn't have been the way we should have gone about it.
Well, good morning, Israel.
Yeah, good morning.
And good morning, everyone. We have already wasted about 9 months, that is almost a year, in selecting or nominating MMDCEs. And we have not finished yet. I can safely presume or project that we are going to spend the next 6 months seeing other drama like what happened in Tripoli yesterday on whether or not they should be accepted or rejected. We have seen all the fight and chaos that happens in the assembly after the president nominates. And this is not just about NPP. It is every government. You see, this past 9 months that the president was trying to nominate people, if you know the intense lobbying that was happening at the presidency, you would realize that even that lobbying alone is not giving the presidency the needed focus to do the work it is supposed to do. We have MMDCs who are agents of development. We are wasting almost about 2 years in nominating them before they come and settle into office and begin to work. And by the time they begin to work, then it is 4 years again. We have to go for general election and their time is over. Don't forget, because they are appointed, most of the time, by the time they arrive in the office, the presidency has already taken all the procurement decisions on their behalf. They will buy Wellington boots in Accra and deduct it from their budget. The assemblies cannot speak because if the chief executive speaks, the president has the power to disappoint him. And so we are entirely against this system whereby the president sits in Accra, nominate people to become district chief executives, and then there's chaos at the end of the day and there's no development. Hence, our call and consistent push for the people to be given the chance to elect their own MMDCs on universal adult suffrage. Looking at the footage that is happening over there, these are things that are not new to us. They happen every now and then, and we're going to see more and more of it. And so we shall continue to say that without delay, Ghanaians should join our call to put a demand on the presidency, whether it is an NDC government or it is an MPP government or even a PPP government. Any president would enjoy the power of appointing and disappointing MMDCs. And so he will not willingly allow such a provision to be changed in the constitution. We were deceived about 2 years ago that there was no consensus, and so we couldn't go for a referendum. But as a matter of fact, the provision that allows for the president to appoint or disappoint the MMDCs is not a provision that requires referendum. It is only Article 55, which bars political parties from participating in local assembly elections, which requires a referendum. And so if there's a political will for us to stop appointing MMDCs and get them elected, Parliament can change the appropriate provisions in Article 243 and so on and so forth. And we will be able to elect our own MMDCs. With this current situation, I can tell you that development at the local level is going to be very, very difficult because a lot of the contracts are awarded from Accra, procurement decisions are taken in Accra. The president is allowed to not only appoint the chief executive, but also appoint about 30% of the assembly members to go and dilute the powers of the elected assemblymen. Therefore, whatever the ruling government decide is final, and it happens, and it fuels the winner takes all syndrome in the system. And so we as a political party, when these things are happening, we are not surprised. And we shall always continue to advocate until Ghanaians understand and the political class accept that it's time for us to elect our own MMDCs.
Let me bring in Mr. Odro. Mr. Odro, as Richard Niama has said, clearly the system where we have now is not working, is it?
I do agree on that point that a lot more needs to be done. But I think it is oversimplistic to think that just amending the constitution to elect MMDCs is the panacea to the challenge we have. There must be an overhaul of the local governance system of the country. And that includes whether we even need to make political parties agents for development. Look at the youth on the street thinking that they must fight for their own man or woman to be made the chief executive. Why can't we harness the powers of the political parties to even lead the development agenda? And I think if you amend just one provision in the Constitution without looking at the whole gamut of consequential amendments that might be made in even other legislations, you'll get it wrong. And again, let me emphasize, there is this wrong perception that procurement is made in Accra for MMDs. That is wholly not true. I mean, if you go to that, in our Public Procurement Act, there are clear guidelines for public procurement, even at the MMDA levels. There are entity tender committees. Of course, the chief executive is the entity head in terms of procurement. So, yes, there are discussions to be had relative to this, but it will be oversimplistic to think that just one amendment will be enough to solve the myriad of challenges we have in our local governance system. Yes, indeed, we've practiced this system for so many years. Let's remember our local government system, as we have it now, predates our constitution. The system has hardly changed, even coming into a constitutional rule. So there are challenges with it that gives too much power to the executive relative to the control of the assemblies. And I also don't think it is fair to consider the attempt that was made prior to the referendum 2 years ago as cosmetic. Indeed, from us at the Institute of Local Government Studies, we did several research. I mean, we went out for public opinions as to how the system was running. There was no way, with particularly the lack of support from the NDC, there was no way that process could have been carried through. I believe if we can succeed in making the kind of changes, the reforms we need, we're going to need the political parties, the major political parties, particularly the MPP and the NDC, to come on board to agree and help us go through that process. Without that, I can tell you, there is no chance in the world that we can have any meaningful reforms. And I think it is better to have holistic reforms than to have cosmetic ones that will not yield any results in our system.
We bring in Andrews Bediako now. He's an MCE nominee, Jamang South, and he's a former administrator when it comes to local government. Thank you very much, Mr. Bediako. So I'm sure, congratulations first of all to you for your nomination. Walk us through the processes till your nomination, to your selection.
Israel, thank you very much. I'll use the opportunity to thank the president and my friends and you yourself, currently on my way to Kumasi, then proceed to Sunyani, to my district or my municipal assembly, as we put it. And I think Israel, what I will say is that Mr. Frederick Odro has said a lot about all these things, how people perceive the system, how the system runs, and all those kind of things. The only solution to this issue that we are confronted with currently is about the election of MMDCs. That will end everything. People have agitated and people have complained about why the president has delayed and all those kind of things. So I sometimes ask myself, the president wanted to give us this opportunity as Ghanaians. Let's go for elections of MMDCs. But we said no, because the Article 2431 is the opportunity for the president to appoint or nominate MMDCs subject to confirmation of the assemblies. But the president said, okay, let me give this thing to the people at the local level. But we said, no, we don't need it because of partisan politics. So all these areas that we are confronted with, or the challenges we are confronted currently, is as a result of we citizens rejecting the election of MMDCs.
No, it's a case. I believe it's a case where the president wanted this to happen on his own terms, and Ghanaians decided that no, they didn't want it on the president's terms.
Actually, you see, if you look at the strategies that the president used, it's about consensus, and the consensus is built based on these strong two political parties that we have in Ghana. As Mr. Odo said, there is no way you can have a referendum in Ghana successfully without MPP NDC on board. No political party can do that. So when NDC, all our engagements, because I was the front runner within the local government, Mr. Odro is aware about all this. When we started all these engagements and those things, NDC was on board. They supported it. I have a lot of evidence to show that NDC was in support of the election of NDC based on the partisanship. So one of my engagements, I was living, how do you call it? Kofodia to Ho. We had done all the engagements within the across the country. So when we were living Kofodia to Ho, then all of a sudden we had information, and the issue was addressed by Honorable the NDC national chairman, to the effect that NDC should withdraw. And I said, wow. All of a sudden, we couldn't make it. So if we can progress as a nation, if we can go forward to have all these things resolved, as Israel will want his MCE or DC elected, I think you people in the media, let us all engage. Let us all come back on board and see. That's the only way that we have now to resolve all these. The president said, let me give the opportunity to the people. And I think we have to grab it. We have to take it. When we are able to take it as Ghanaians, definitely all these hullabaloo that people are complaining about will end. And I think that is the only way to go.
Now, Mr. Odro, so let's look at what was presented to the people by the president and analyze it and see how that would have resolved the problems that we're dealing with. Because if you look at it, it's really about, it's still internal politicking, because the people who are agitating, they believe that we belong to this party and we want a particular person to be nominated, and yet we're not getting that. And that is why they're agitating. Isn't that the case?
Not quite. I believe that it is akin to the competitive democratic system we have, even internally within parties. You'd expect that political parties will put up their own program of action, if we want to call it manifesto, so be it, in the various districts. Then there will be systems in place to select candidates for the various political parties within every district. mind you, we talking about this. I mean, there was this issue of winner takes all. We live in a country that a political party will lose in a district, and you have even losing candidates in parliamentary elections being brought back as chief executives. But if you have gone through a process, a democratic process of selecting people from within the political parties, you will have situations that the internal democratic principles should work to ensure that the right candidates are chosen from each party. Again, let us indicate that the fact that we are talking about a partisan system, I believe in that system, doesn't mean that you can't have independent people who do not belong to any political parties also throwing their hats in to contest for these roles. So that process by itself has got some inbuilt systems that will assuage the feelings of people. Of course, there are people who don't accept rule of law. And some of these bullies will always insist that it is either my man or nobody else. Those people, I consider them deviants. We must have a system to deal with them because they would be breaking the law. The law says, let us select. If we go through the right processes to select, if you are not happy with it, you take the internal mechanism to resolve your challenge, or you even go to court to resolve your challenge. That is what pertains in a country of rule of law. I believe by going the partisan way also, we will have opportunities. Like, for instance, PPP may not even have a member of parliament, but it can have, it can elect a chief executive in, say, Parko Disindium's district, KEA, for it to show in KEA that as a party, this is what we can do for this district. And you need to consider it. Elsewhere in other democracies, take even the Prime Minister of the UK, Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson was once upon a time the mayor of London, and he used that to showcase his leadership abilities. You go to Turkey, the president of Turkey was once upon a time a mayor. All these people have used the local government system to build themselves, to show their leadership skills, to project to people their capabilities, out of which they can even ascend the highest office of the land. So we need to have a conversation. But my plea is that we should discuss this dispassionately. I sometimes get worried about the kind of language and insinuations used in our political discourse. That creates animosity, and it doesn't help us to devise systems that can really help us to fashion out a governance system that can stand the test of time. From my perspective, the current system is not working. Let us really do an effective assessment of what we have, whether in the last 30 years or so, our local government system has lived up to expectation. But let me quickly add, before you take me off, that it is not only about the election. That is one leg of the decentralization process. There are a lot of other things we need to look at. What should the local government system be there for? What kind of funding arrangement are we putting in place for local government? What kind of accountability mechanisms exist at the local government? These are also other discussions we must have in addition to the democratization of the system. So there is more to it than meets the eye. So we need a dispassionate conversation. And then as a people with a common destiny, we should decipher what will best work for us. That will be my take.
Mr. Andrews Bediako, let's stay with this issue of partisanship. Mr. Ejaku Odro believes that, yes, we should go the partisan way. But if we should go the partisan way, how different is it going to be from the current situation we have with the legislature, where MPs are appointed or are elected based on partisanship? Mr. Andrews Bediako, you'll have to unmute for us.
Israel.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I will go with Mr. Odro's assertion that we have to go partisanship. That is the only way. Because when you ask people that we don't need partisanship, then the question we always ask them, what should be the criteria or the modus that we can use to have elections? As we have currently,
let's have people present themselves. Even if you belong to a party, present yourself as an apolitical figure. Come and everybody else can contest.
We will end up having about 50.
We would end up
50,000 people on the ballot.
All right, we're having some challenges with Andres Bediaku's connection, but let me put that question to the PPE, Richard Niyama. Mr. Niyama, so PPP, so here's the case where there's the push for partisanship. But as I was making the point, and it's something that you actually support, that we shouldn't go partisan. Or are you saying that we should go partisan? As everybody else?
Israel, we are in support of partisan,
all right,
but not immediately. You see, the outcry against the referendum was the fact that our partisan nature of politics has not been something that the people like. And so realizing that the people are not in support of partisanship, we believe that we could go a step-by-step approach. For example, as I told you, Article 243, which requires the president to nominate district chief executives, is not an entrenched provision in the Constitution. And that one can be amended by Parliament when they go through the right procedures. And so we believe that we can go a step-by-step approach. And then after we have practiced electing the MMDCs for let's say 10 years, 20 years, when the people feel that it is now time for us to allow the political parties to be involved, then we can go and allow the political parties to be involved. But let me just touch on something briefly that Mr. Frederick Oduro mentioned about this, whether or not it is a perception that government takes procurement decisions on behalf of MMDCs. I can cite a number of examples. And the most recent example that I remember is the fact that when NAPCO was introduced, a certain percentage of the budget for the MMDCs was deducted by central government to go and pay NAPCO without the consent of the MMDCs. But none of them were able to speak because if you speak, you are going to be disappointed. So this is a clear example. It's not as if there's a perception. It is something that happens and we see it happening every day. So back to your question, yes, PPP supports partisan election of MMDCs, but not immediately. Immediately, we are demanding for election of MMDCs, and we believe that if the executive and parliament take steps to amend Article 243 to allow the people to elect the MMDCs on non-partisan basis for a start, they will see the benefit of election of MMDCs, and then later on, political parties can come on board to help it become better. But if we want to use the political parties as a requirement before we go and elect MMDCs, then the people might kick against it as it was happening 2 years ago, and then somebody will sit in Accra and say there's no consensus, therefore I've cancelled the referendum. I wonder how he was able to arrive on that decision, because I thought it was a referendum that would have determined whether there was consensus or not.
All right, let me come to Mr. Andrews Bediaku now. So you have been nominated, and we know the processes that are supposed to follow. You have to be approved by your assembly. When is the process kickstarting for you?
10 days, within the 10-day period. Immediately, the minister writes to the assemblies. The first election should be within the 10 days, that current period that we are talking about, the 10 days. But Israel, let me tell you something. People are saying we should have elections of MMDCs, but not based on partisanship. I totally disagree with them. So when you ask them, what should be the vehicle? It's like, currently as we have in our days, we know the district assembly elections, as per how we are going to elect our assembly members, should be non-partisanship. But nobody can convince me. When you get to the assembly, the first people that you confront with them, you ask the technocrats at the assembly about who assembly member represent at the political party level. They will tell you this assembly member belongs to MPP, this assembly member belongs to NDC. But if we are just, looking at it as, okay, let's go have elections, open it. Israel, I'm telling you, we can end up having about 50 people on the ballot paper. How can we run such an election? It will not be possible because everybody will be, okay, I don't belong to this political party. At the end of the day, we are going to have these same political parties. Why is it that after assembly elections, people will come back and tell us, oh, MP, we had about 2,000 assembly members. NDC, we had about 4,000 assembly members. Where is it coming from? We are behaving, we don't know what is going on. We know. Nobody can convince me that if we want to go have elections at the assembly level or election of MMDCs, then we say it is non-partisan. These two parties will come and definitely they are going to determine whoever becomes the assembly, MC for that area. So why don't we open it? Let the political parties come on board. You see, I've attended some international conferences. When you go, then you tell people that this mayor represents the president in, let's say, Accra. They begin to ask why. People who learned from us in terms of local governance, they are ahead of us. Because if you look at the current situation, the administrative decentralization, we have achieved it because we post people to the local governance structures and people are working there. When you talk of financial, we have all this. But when you the political decentralization, that is where we are lacking. And I think nobody currently can convince me that we should have these elections, but it shouldn't be partisanship. It will never work. This same MPP NDC will come on board. I'm telling you, my brother.
Mr. Bediako, how confident are you that you are going to cross the next hurdle, which is get the approval of your assembly?
Oh, the way as we are speaking now, the calls coming and people, even my presiding member who is convener of this meeting, everybody, Nananum, everybody is calling me, congratulating me. And I know, Israel, I'm not into that kind of partisanship. As we call Kianeke MPP, Kianeke NDC. No, I'm not into that. I am a unifier, and I know definitely my people, all of them are calling me, all the assembly members are calling me. That I said, I'm on my way coming. So wait, I will be there this evening. I will be there, and I will meet all of them. And I know Israel, I will go 100%.
All right, so we will be watching this space to see how it pans out, but I'm not sure if we're actually done with the protests and agitations from across the country. But the other issue that is coming up has to do with the rather, low representation of women. Well, we have 260 in all, and it looks like we're having just about 36 or 38 women.
Yeah, it will interest you to know that this is the first time we are having such a number for women. This is the first time. So we will thank the president very much because I am an advocate for that let our women be part of the local governance structure as we have now. So we will thank the president very much for whatever he has done for
Shouldn't it have been a lot better than this?
Yeah, we can do better. But I think that the president has done well. So we shouldn't say as if more women are not there. But this is the first time, as I said, this is the first time that we are having this kind of women representation. And I think the president has done well. Let's all congratulate the president.
Now, Richard Niyama, what do you make of the rather low number of women?
I think a lot more. But looking at the competitive nature of this DCE election or selection process and the lobbying that has to go on and so on and so forth, of course, it is predictable that a lot more women who did not have political clout could not catch the eyes of the president. And so I think even though the numbers are, as the German South MC said, is higher than previously, I think much more could have been done. And I believe that if we put in place better structures to empower women, both socially and economically, they would be able to rise up to take some of these tasks.
Richard Niyama is Executive Director of the Progressive People's Party, and we've also been speaking with Kwame Bediako, who is the MC nominee, Andrews Bediako, who's the MC nominee for Jamang South. He's a former administrator of the National Association of Local authorities of Ghana. You're still on the AM show. We have more coming up on the show. We have the ARB Apex Bank investigating how the Bongo District Assembly withdrew more than 180,000 cedis from the contractor's account without his approval. Manasseh Azuriah-Wone, whose investigation led to the Apex Bank probe, reports that the Assembly used the contractor's company to award a contract to itself without the contractor's knowledge. We bring you the intriguing details of the Bongo scandal, the latest investigative work by the Fourth Estate Manasseh Azuriah-Wone.